All right, everybody, welcome to the 352nd edition of the Holy Backboard Podcast. I am Dustin here in Rip City, and I got my man.
Sage just got back from a family reunion in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, so really missing the New England food, and it's 11 p.m. for me right now, so I'm extra tired.
You're
So I'm
still
sure there's
not, you're
dude,
still not back on West Coast time yet?
I got back Tuesday, so
It's Thursday, dog.
I I'm not used to this shit. I was chilling in New England for a while, bro. So, I woke up at like 9:30 after I had breakfast. Like, fuck, it is lunch time for your boy.
I got
But
a text from you on like Saturday. You're like, I am so ready to go home. Everyone's leaving except for me, and I'm not coming in until Monday night. And I'm just like, ugh. Yeah, those family vacations, they're fun, but they can be lengthy. And yeah, you definitely um are gonna have those cravings, the New England cravings for quite a bit of time. Anytime you go traveling and eat that cuisine, it's just like your body is just like, where is it at? I need it. I want it. And you also sent me pictures of the bathroom situation, which I
dude,
didn't envy. And in true holy backboard fashion, I made sure I went to the bathroom before recording
oh, I
because
surely didn't. But
yeah, so
so we rented a house that was made in like 1907. So the bathrooms aren't made for guys that are like 6 foot and heavy. So like the ceiling was 5'7", so I couldn't even like use it. So it was kind of just like an excuse to get kind of drunk and piss in the yard because
did
I
you kind
couldn't.
of feel like you probably felt like Wemby,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
tall, you have to duck
I
everywhere.
know. Damn, these New Englanders in the 1900s are too small. I have to I have to go somewhere else. It was 10 leaves for 1.5 bathrooms. So it was a very weird experience having to like take a shower, get out, and then I see my entire family. It was different. But we actually have a guest, so we probably shouldn't be talking about the bathroom
But
situation
I feel
right
like
now.
that's just on brand. Like we always have our 2 to 3 minute initial off topic just to kind of warm up the vocals, get everything going. But yes, we do. We have Sam at Rip Village on Twitter, also host of the Lickety Brindle podcast. Sam, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. This is a total a trip for me. I've been listening to y'all for a long time. I was telling Sage a moment ago, y'all are really early on your positions, and correct often. And just you have your take is usually on point, and I love all your draft analysis is just it's a soothing balm for the spring as the team starts to tear it down. So yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for having me.
Of
Thank you
course,
for listening to our draft content. Like
we
Oh,
really
it's the
appreciate
best.
that.
And
Yeah.
it's
and
so
I
much
gotta
more
say, the
work.
extra work that you do for the mock draft is also fun, including the trades. Those are great.
We ruin our lives for those mock drafts. It legitimately is so much more work than just talking about the games that happened a week ago that we sort of remember. Like the,
Well,
the draft stuff's a lot of
Sage, I Sage, I watched my first like draft prep for 2024, and this is the earliest I've ever like it's August. The previous, what am I doing? I usually don't get into like draft content until like December or January, and it's way too early to be thinking about G League Ignite people.
When the G League Ignite come to the Child Center to play the remix, we gotta
Big
go.
day, big
It,
day.
it
big
is
day.
going to be a big day. There's probably like four top 10 prospects there. I am with you. I have been looking. Adam Spinnerella is great on YouTube. Uh,
Spins, yeah.
yeah, he does great breakdowns. I've already got some of my favorites for the 2024 class. Portland's in a really good spot where they can now look to pick for best player available, but now they can kind of just like, oh, what wings can we grab? What big man can we grab? So it's a good position to be in. It's a fun position to be in. Some of my favorite memories are of the early B-Roy years, paying a $300 or not get sitting in 300 level, sneaking your way down to the 100 level because the arena was bare, and just watching that team really grow organically. So before we get into kind of like our
Yeah.
summer Q&A. Something we like to do for our listeners when we have a guest on is kind of introduce yourself to our audience. Maybe how long you've been a fan, some of your favorite memories, and maybe what were some of your favorite players, either growing up or currently.
Yeah. So I've been watching it. My dad had a construction company and they had tickets available growing. I'm from Portland originally. And went to a ton of games growing up. So I got to see Drexler and Kersey and really came of age with the Rod Strickland, like Harvey Grant, Sabonis. Like that whole era was like when I cut my teeth as a fan. And so of course, like when Whitsitt came in and just started buying players and putting it all together with that like massive Kelvin Cato, Scottie Pippen trade, that was when it was like, oh snap, we have like Steve Smith now. Like this is getting proper. Like this team's gonna make a run. And so yeah, like Rasheed Wallace, like all those guys are like hollowed ground to me. And then transitionally when I became a little bit older in my fandom, same thing. Like that Brandon Roy, it was just like he was the first like really solid player we had after the Steve Patterson era, and that was so refreshing to have somebody that represented the Northwest like so fully as a UW dude. Seeing him in Aldridge, I mean that draft day trade of like getting Aldridge, getting Roy also. And that was cool for me. I'm a little bit older, but I was able to go to the summer league where Aldridge and Roy were rookies, and so my dad and I went down there and saw Joel Freeland and Martell Webster, and that was a stacked team. And so after that, I was like all in on that next era. And I think like one of my favorite, I mean, you guys would probably agree, but one of my favorite teams was like the Channing Frye, Sergio, Rudy Fernandez.
The 54 win team?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the 54 win team,
Or
but it
was
with Sergio. They were bad, I think. It might have been the off year for Odin when he was hurt.
07, 08, yeah.
Yeah.
Brandon, the
thing I remember is going online. This was like when YouTube was still in its infancy, and watching clips of Sergio's like his per 48 like assist ratio is like number one in the league, and he'd come in for like 8 minutes in the fourth quarter and just he'd have like 7 or 8 assists in like 10 minutes. So Sergio and Rudy, like those are my guys like of that era. And it just bums me out whenever we see these FIBA games, seeing Rudy and Sergio continue to play. It like breaks my heart a little bit because I kind of wonder like, is there another Sliders universe where Sergio and Rudy are like legit like full-time NBA players? You never really know, but I don't know. It was kind of a bummer with Sergio because like he never really developed that jump shot that he needed to attack in an offense in the way that he needed to. And so it'll be fun watching him. I think he's on the Spain team next month, or this month, I guess. So that'll be fun. So yeah, Sergio and Rudy are kind of my fellows. I love those guys.
Nice. I had season tickets. That was the first year I had season tickets. It was 07.
Awesome.
I actually was deciding between going to the University of Oregon or Portland State, and we had drafted Craig Hoden, got the lottery. I was like, well, I need to get season tickets. Like I am stoked. It made sense, other reasons, but I do like to say that played a large role in it, and I can't complain. That 13 game win streak was magical. Sergio also threw a couple of fantastic lobs to Travis Outlaw. That was my guy.
Travis, that's right.
On that team. So yeah, really fond memories. And I'm kind of getting that sense that they're trying to build something similar right now. So Sage, you've been out for a couple of weeks. It's been a minute since we've had a guest on this podcast, and there's just been
a full year.
Yeah, there's been, obviously with our work schedules, it's a lot harder to get on a consistent recording time. It's mostly like, hey, Sage, can you record today at 11:15? Sure. That's in the morning sometimes. It's been a minute, but there's been a lot going on, and there's a lot of questions that about topics that I don't really think are being answered or asked in the community. There's what you're getting from the ESPN First Takes and some other Blazer outlets. I think it's getting a little crowded, noisy. It's just the same conversation. So I wanted to kind of switch gears And I've got about 7 questions, and I'll answer them too, but I wanted to tee them up to both of y'all first. The first question: how open are the both of you to Damian Lillard being on this roster as training camp opens? It's been almost a month since he put out that trade request. And it doesn't seem like there's really any end in sight at the current moment. So the likelihood of him being on the roster come training camp is a little bit higher. And I wanted to get your take on how do you feel about that, given everything that Aaron Goodwin has really done to, I think, tarnish his reputation a little bit?
All you, Sam. I got to think about this. I did
Okay.
not
Well,
read any of his questions.
yeah, I'm split on it. It's kind of a left brain, right brain thing. So the way I would answer this is that fan bases often have to take on the personality of the GM and the front office of the team. So with Daryl Morey, it's all about like this posture that you have. It's about like sitting in the discomfort of a long-term negotiation if your player's asking out. And I think Cronin, it's funny that Harden's asking out too, because there's these like two parallel trades going on at the same time. But Cronin's basically asking the fan base to be negotiators with him. But that's really uncomfortable. And as a fan, it's like not a natural state to be in. You want certainty. You want like, I love like building like rotations in my head, like when I'm like doing my thing. So to answer your question, on one hand, I want resolution, but on the other hand, I want Cronin to like wait as long as possible. And so from that perspective, from that other part of my brain, I'm like, Dame can come to camp if he wants. We need to wait out the heat. But because that's their real only leverage here. Like it seems like Riley and Ellsberg want to get the cheapo like Kyle Lowry price for Dame. And as we know, Dame is like a much higher he'd be like the number one player on their team potentially. So and on the other side of it again though, like I want the marketing department to be able to like put Scoot on the side of the Rose Garden and sell this new era, just like he did with Roy and Aldridge and Odin. How do you bring Damon to camp and have like this marketing package be all about like Scoot and the kids? But I also realize if Cronin waits, another deal might actually pop up that's better for the long-term franchise like success. So it's really this is a really tense time for Blazers fans.
It definitely will test your patience. And I would say, like, prior to the trade demand, I was like, thought it would be awesome, a wonderful experience for Scoot to learn under Dame's tutelage. But my tune has changed a little bit after that trade request, trade demand, so to speak, for a few reasons. I think if one of the benefits, right, people talk about the mentorship aspect, and I do agree the Blazers need to bring in some form of a veteran point guard, similar to Steve Blake was with Brandon Roy. Damian Lillard had Earl Watson and Ronnie Price. But when you look at a mentor, Scoot's already getting that from, it may not feel great to say for Blazer fans, but Steph Curry stepped in and took that role. He's already working out with Steph, probably talking back and forth with him. So he does have that mentorship already kind of under.
And Pooh.
Yeah, and Pooh Jeter from the G League Ignite, who is now, I think, operations over at the Remix. Like, is being around like a melancholy Damian Lillard the best start to Scoot's tenure here in Portland? I tend to lean no. Then you look at the aspect, like, he's played 2 years, Scoot Henderson, in the G League Ignite professional basketball, and then you see how he conducts himself on interviews on the sideline. You see how he performs on summer league. Like, he's ready. You saw it with Brandon, you saw it with Damian. This guy is ready, and we didn't hold Brandon or Damian back. We gave them the keys. Yeah, yes, I know they were 22 years old when they entered the association. Scoot's just that dude. That's why I was so high on him. I think he's transcended. I think at 19, he's ready to have the keys. And I think it'd be the best if we could let him take that lead as soon as possible. Because if you're talking about, if Dame's there, like, are you starting? What do you do with Anthony now? Like, do you trade him or do you start him? are you bringing Scoot off the bench? Like, I don't think that's really the move for this franchise that really risked it all to select Henderson. And then there's a couple of other, I think, maybe paranoia points of view that I've taken is, what if Portland has another fool's gold start, right? Last year they went 10-4 and we were all pretty hyped. Do they try to make a couple of win now moves to sacrifice some future assets? We saw the ramifications of what happened in 2016 with the Blazers. They beat the Clippers. They had a competitive series against the Warriors, and then they just tied themselves up into bad money for 4 players for the next 4 seasons. We also saw it happen with the Phoenix Suns in 2014 with that Goran Dragic, Morris brother twin. They accelerated their timeline, and it kind of all blew up. And now it took them like 7 additional years to get back to the finals.
Atlanta now,
exactly. So you've got some teams like Portland needs to really look at that OKC. That is the blueprint in my mind, and just take it slow. And just the threading of the 2 timelines, I think, is next to impossible unless you're already starting at a championship level foundation with the Spurs. The Spurs did it when they had the big 3, and then the Kawhi falls into their laps on that draft day trade with George Hill. The Warriors, they weren't even able to pull it off because they drafted poorly. And now you saw them salary dump Jordan Poole just to kind of get off of that 2 timelines. And they've been still trying to trade some of their young players to win now. And, we saw Portland already make kind of 1 win now move, and they traded for Jeremy Grant. But now that Dame's requested out, now you're locked into 5 years of Jeremy Grant. And that pick, which was the Bucks 2025 first, Detroit flipped it to New York. They took Jalen Duren. Like, I don't know about you, but we have Yusuf Nurkic and nobody else that is over 6'9". Jalen Duren would look damn fine in the black and red right now. But because we tried to thread 2 timelines, we now have a player who is solid in Jeremy Grant, but has a big contract and doesn't really fit what the Joe Cronin is trying to do with Scoot and Shaden. So all things considered, like, I understand the wanting to be patient. I don't, like, at what cost. I think there has to be like a kind of like, you put the jelly beans on each weigh scale, like what's going to outweigh the other, because is it worth scraping out an extra first round pick or an extra swap? Is it worth it? Because like you said, the marketing plays a huge deal in this too. Like,
yeah,
it's already a bummer at, somebody who's worked on the marketing side with the Blazers.
Yeah.
Like,
what would you do in this situation, Dustin?
You are already seeing them remove Damian.
I mean, the fact when they were in the meeting, like talking, like having their chat, and I think somebody literally on social during that moment captured the Moda Center, like, Dame Lillard
and
image.
I do believe that was
down.
scheduled. Like,
really?
I do. Yeah, that was
okay.
scheduled.
Fair enough. But that was just like an uncanny moment.
Yeah,
even from a perception point of view, that was like crazy.
Exactly. The optics weren't great, but like, you've seen the marketing has already changed a bit. Like, if you on Instagram, you see the ads. Like, now you're seeing they're going heavy on Scoot, especially Rip City Clothing Company. They're trying to sell those jerseys. You're seeing Chris Murray. You're seeing Anthony. Now Jeremy. Once Jeremy resigned, he started to appear back on all of the communications, but he wasn't prior because he was an unrestricted free agent. But Dame's kind of been, like I said, Dame's been gone off of the materials. Do they start pushing him back? Like, I think just in general, the Blazers and Dame need just a break from each other. Like, it needs to happen, because if it doesn't, I feel like it's going to be like one of those, let's get back together one more time just for good time's sake.
Dustin, Dustin, you used to work there. Like, what are they doing in August? Is this like marketing planning meetings and getting that? Like, are they going to have to just wait to like package all that stuff up? I'm sure they've already kind of thought about, putting Scoot on the side of the Moda or whatever, getting Sharp out there.
You're looking at billboards, radio hits,
right?
Starting to put your graphics together for social. You're having your broadcasting meetings. Like, what stories are you going to run? I mean, they just wrapped up The Trail, that documentary, which was
that was the only episode I watched, was the last one, because I just could that doc. It was really hard for me to watch because it just felt like this dead man walking type of thing. But the eighth episode was like fantastic. So fun to see everybody.
And now, like, you have to plan, like, what what are you going to do content wise? Like people think like, oh, the off season, you just get, no, you don't get a break. Like there's still.
Oh,
So
no.
Dustin, how vertically integrated is it? Because amid this negotiation, we really haven't gotten much at all out of the team because they're trying to. But what we are reading into are the season ticket holder emails that are like, we're building around Dame at the draft, you know.
When I
And
saw that, it was just like, if people only knew, like their goal is to sell tickets, right? Damian Lillard is technically on the roster. What is going to sell the most tickets? Saying that we're going to build around Dame, you're going to put Dame front and center on that email, and of course they were excited. They got the 3rd overall pick.
But Dwayne Hankins is like talking to Joe, right? And then he's like, I don't know. It just makes me wonder, like, how?
Yeah.
What are they?
Sure.
I wonder if the marketing folks kind of know where they're headed already. Like, do you think they know? Do you think the marketing department knows if Dame's
I don't think
in or
anybody
out?
knows.
Okay.
No.
Dustin knew that they were trying to trade Myers for Ryan Anderson, and it really broke my heart.
No, I that was a long story, but I definitely pulled your chain on that one. My next question: does a non-trade or does a non-Heat trade partner exist for the Blazers and Damian Lillard?
I don't think so. I mean, not right now, at least. I think the Blazers will end up dealing Dame before training camp. That's honestly when I think it'll happen. I think people will start to trickle back into the practice facility in September. And I actually don't think the max Miami offer is that bad. I think there's been people who are like, oh my God, it'd be like fireable offense. But I think there's a huge gap in between what's being reported and what is being discussed by fans. I think fans are discussing this max package, but the Woj one, the two, I think it's Harrow and two or one swap and like 2 picks and Duncan Robinson. That one is like, you really have, if that's really what Riley is starting with, I kind of agree with Cronin to just like not engage, because
What's
I do
the
think
Godfather offer
for Miami. I mean, it's got to be, you have to first, Miami has to unlock that 26 pick. They have to go to OKC and they have to say, we're just going to make it unprotected. OKC obviously is going to say, yeah, that's chill, let's do that. So then you're able to unlock their 2024 pick. You get their 2028, you get their 2030, all unprotected. I think you try to finagle pick swaps in 27 and 29. I think you definitely go after Jaquez and Jovic. They're 2 previous first round draft picks. It's on Miami to find a suitor for Tyler Hero and send another pick Portland's way. So you're really, and salary. Hopefully you're able to shed some money off of Dame, whether that's in the form of Lowry or Caleb Martin or Duncan Robinson, like however that is managed. But in the end, you're really looking at 4 picks, 2 swaps, and 2 former first round picks.
I mean, y'all are the draft people. Like is Jaquez and Jovic? We disagree. Is it plug your nose and take those 2 guys? Because my theory on these trades is you need one guy that is kind of the embodiment of the star that's leaving, and that's Kessler, that's Markkanen, that's, you know, like somebody who's just kind of the net. And I've watched a lot of Jovic tape, I've watched some Jaquez tape, and those guys just, I can't get there yet.
No, I
so
don't think Miami has
You're on
what
mute,
Portland.
Dustin.
No, Jovic is a nice ISO guy, and Dustin and I disagree fully on the UCLA guy.
Would be a fan favorite day one, guaranteed.
And
really,
I think that he is not athletic enough, and his offense and defense aren't good enough to be.
I just don't. What are their elite skills in the NBA? Like Schmidt said that. Schmidt said that like 6 months ago. He's like, you want one elite skill. That's what you're looking for with a draft guy.
Hawkins is smart. That
just seems like such that line, though. It's like, oh, he's such a hard worker. Like,
yeah, they're treating him like he's a white player. Absolutely.
So the thing is I really did a deep dive on this question, because, you know, initially I was like, Portland has all the leverage, right? Dame's under contract. They can just hold him out, right? But at the end of it does take 2 to tango. And if no other non-Heat team steps to the table, then leverage kind of swings into the Miami camp. I don't think it'll ever fully swing into their camp, because Portland wants to suck next year. They want to continue to build through the lottery. Miami is a championship contender. They just made it to the finals. They have to go all in. So in a way, the leverage is going to keep swinging back and forth. But to me, it just feels like Portland's a day late and a dollar short when it comes to this trade of Damian Lillard. It's the equivalent of the Blazers jumping in the ice bucket challenge for the ALS like a year later after everyone else already did it. Like when you look back, you look back at least 4 years, I think that's when all of these mega trades started to happen. There was a number of NBA All-Stars that were moved for these just war chest of draft capital. And it did two things. One, it dried up the assets for the teams acquiring the top talent. And then it led to an uneven distribution of the future first round draft picks. I mean, you look.
Okay, see in New Orleans.
AD goes to the Lakers. Drew Holiday goes to the Bucks. Paul George to the Clippers. Westbrook to Houston. Harden to Brooklyn, and then Harden to Philly. DeJounte Murray to Atlanta. Gobert to Minnesota. Donovan to Cleveland. Kevin Durant to Phoenix. So you remove those 9 teams with depleted draft assets. That's 9. That was Atlanta, Cleveland, Houston, both LA teams, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Philadelphia, and Phoenix. Okay, so then you start to do process of elimination. Then you have to remove the teams that are in rebuild mode or quote unquote young contention. So I established teams like the Pelicans, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, and in Utah. There's 4 more teams off the board. And there's also just a lot of great fucking point guards in the league. The teams aren't going to move mountains to get an upgrade on when they already feel comfortable with who they have. And there's 10 squads. You've got LaMelo Ball in Charlotte, Darius Garland in Cleveland, Luka and Kyrie in Dallas, Cade in Denver, Cade in Detroit, Jamal Murray in Denver, Steph, CP3 in Golden State, Halliburton in Indiana, John Morant in Minnesota or Memphis, Jalen Brunson in New York, and then you've got De'Aaron Fox in Sacramento. And then there's 3 teams where it just doesn't make sense. Jaylen Brown signed that extension. That took that piece off the board. Boston's gone. You're not going to send him to Orlando, and you're not going to send him to Washington. So now you're left with 3 teams, Brooklyn, Toronto, and Miami. And I'll put an asterisk on Utah just because they were a team that double dipped in the war chest, and they had an excess of picks to use.
Yeah, they can overpay for him.
And I think Danny Ainge would love just to rub it in Pat Riley's nose a little bit. So that's an asterisk team, but really you're looking at Brooklyn, Miami, and Toronto. And if Toronto and Brooklyn don't step up to the table, you're left. There's only one person left to dance with. So then it's really gonna. So that's why I'm just like I don't love the Miami offer, but like if you're getting picks, if you're getting, guys on rookie scale contracts, if you're getting out of Dame's deal, like let's be real, that extension was gnarly. Like getting paid 60 plus million at 35, 36. That's going to be tough. And I really like the idea of Portland being able to kind of be flexible with their books.
So
yeah, I mean, that's the new free. Sorry, go ahead, Sage.
So with the Miami one, like what is the most desirable asset for you? Is it just getting rid of Dame? Or is it getting?
No, it's the 28 and 30 unprotected picks. And I know the argument is Miami's rarely been bad, and I get that. Pat Riley usually builds a contender, but Pat Riley is like nearing his 80s. You've also got Jimmy Butler nearing his mid 30s. Dame's going to be gone by then. Jimmy might have been retired, and you're left with like Bam, and all of their draft capital would be wiped out. I don't see. In 5 years, I don't see the Miami Heat as a contender, especially when, as people like Woj have been saying, there is no more unrestricted free agency for these megastars. They are signing in to these mega deals. They can get their max money with their current team, and then they're asking out. It's the NBA's version of the transfer portal. So Miami used to be a hotbed for free agency. Obviously, they got the big 3 in 2010. So I don't know if free agency is going to be able to bail out that franchise again. So those picks if you think about it, you're getting those picks 5 and 7 years down the line when
they're valuable.
Scoot and Shaden are 24 and 26. I mean, that's like what the Lakers used to do in the 80s when they would just like make these future trades, and you've got championship contending teams like, oh yeah, we're just going to pick up James Worthy in this draft because we got this pick from 3 years ago. Like you got to start thinking ahead. And I know people say, oh, I don't want to wait that long. Well, why not? Like, we're not trying to win right now. Like, the goal is to be good in 5 to 7 years. Like, you take time. Like it's a gradual increase, but take our time. And if you have those, either draft a player on again a rookie scale contract, or then you start to have these assets where you can go out and get that next
You can overpay.
superstar,
Yeah.
and you can really go for the chips. So like set yourselves up to succeed, which Portland didn't do with Dame, but the opportunity is right there for them to do it with Scoot and Shaden.
And just think about it. Dame's going to be on his big boy contract. Bam's going to get his third contract. Jimmy's trying to get his money. Like, how are they going to even replenish the stars that are getting old? Everybody's going to be on long-term permanent ass deals that is going to be impossible to trade. And when they get Dame, they're not going to have any first to, sweeten the pot of take this old superstar. So I think those late picks are going to be extraordinarily valuable. I honestly, like, I would love to have Kyle Lowry be the mentor for Scoot Henderson for a year. I mean, he's been there, done that. I mean, he's been every part of the NBA, an angry point guard, a championship, a champion, a contender. Like, I wouldn't mind having him be that mentor. I know it's a lot of money, but who else on this team has a long-term contract outside of Jeremy Grant and Nasir, who is entirely tradable? So, I mean,
yeah, and I think the cap floor has kind of changed this rebuild idea too. Like it used to be that you could get. I mean, I think San Antonio was like $30 million below the cap floor last year or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see how these teams like get up to that floor level so that they can still be useful partners, way stations for other teams. And Presti's like trading picks out as far as he can to keep that war chest alive. I think he has 4 2024 picks next year. Like how the heck, like if you're Presti, he's going to be trying to sell those. He doesn't need 4 new players. He has 21 guys on the roster right now.
Yeah.
So,
they're going to need to cut players now.
I want Usman. Garuba.
I was thinking either him or take a flyer on Ty Washington, like both
yeah.
on their rookie contract.
I want to take a chance on Poku.
They're going to have to cut someone good. I listened to a podcast with Sam Vecini and one of the Thunder beat writers, I think, for the Athletic, and like, yeah, they were just going down their depth chart, and it's crazy about what decisions they're going to have to make. And there is a danger of having too much of a good thing, but put me in that camp. I would love to be in their shoes. I mean, like I said, the blueprint is there for the Blazers. Real quick before the next question, Brooklyn or Toronto have anything that either of you would be more intrigued by?
I mean, I was even thinking about the Grady Dick construction I saw yesterday, I think. And that's basically like Boucher and Grady Dick and a couple other pieces. I don't love the OG Anunoby thing. That's like way too high of a risk profile. Like he might just walk next year. Obviously, you'd love to have Scotty Barnes, but
it's Scotty Barnes or bust for me, baby. Yeah.
I just don't see. We've been in negotiations with Masai for the last 2 years, and that guy's not dealing anybody. So
at least in this time, I think we're in a position of power, right? The Toronto Raptors are one of those teams that are just like kind of like in complete indecision mode. They don't know which direction they want to go. But in the East, having Dame, Gary Trent, OG, Pascal, Jakob Poeltl, that's I could see that team doing a Miami Heat type of run. Like
that would be the Kawhi trade, like all over again.
Exactly. Like the foundation is there. It makes more sense to do that than trying to rebuild when Pascal won't commit to an extension. So he's basically untradeable this season. And then OG clearly has his health concerns. Brooklyn has some picks, but like they also gave up a ton of picks to get James Harden. So they're a little bit different. I know Nick Claxton is the soup du jour for some Blazer fans.
Why?
But I don't think he's as impressive as a prospect or a player as, to me, a Scotty Barnes would. So
DFS time. There is a reason that you target against Brooklyn Nets centers when you are playing DFS. They're the worst at post defense and rebounding. So your opposing center is going to get like 6 extra points and 4 extra rebounds. I don't want to deal with Nick Claxton on our team getting bullied by fucking name a center on our team, and at least Yusuf Nurkic can put on some fucking like he can at least stop some people. Nick Claxton's trash at rebounding and defense. Like, nah, I'm good. But
speaking of Yusuf Nurkic, great transition into my next question, Sage, and I'll let you have first dibs at this. Does Yusuf Nurkic need to go out in any trade involving Damian Lillard?
I'm trying to think about how it's going to be fucking. I'm cursing so much because I'm tired. It's going to be very difficult for a team to $45 million for Dame, 20 plus for Nurk. That's a lot of salary going
17
out.
For Nurk, I believe.
17. So 45 plus 17. That's a lot of money that we
You didn't want to do math live on air.
Fuck no, bro. I did 150 FanDuel lineups, bro. I'm done with math for the day. But I think that it will be difficult for it has to be like a 3 or 4 team trade for Dame and for Yusuf to go. So it would be very nice for Yusuf to go. I think that he's done here. I mean, Chauncey Billups and his relationship has to be trashed because of how disrespectful I feel like he's been treated by the coaching staff. So I think it would be wise for us to happen. But because of the salary that's being shelled out, I think it's going to be really difficult. And like the trade that, it gets rumored, a day before the actual trade comes out is going to be so much more complex than what is first rumored. So I think it would be nice. I just don't know how likely it will be with just the shitload of salary that's coming out of Portland. Like, teams have to have space for it. So, I mean, it's a very narrow, like this has the only way it works. So it would be nice, but I just don't know how likely it is.
Yeah, and I just in a very complex negotiation with Pat Riley and Ellsberg, I do not want Nurk to be the reason that we're getting back like less stuff. Like quid pro quo. Like if we put Nurkic on the table, are they saying, okay, well, you can't have this other thing?
Do you think he's neutral, positive, or negative trade value? You think he's?
I think
right now he's a negative trade value just because of
significantly or
not significant, but I think you would, if right now Portland it needs to get off that deal, they would have to attach a first round pick to it. 3 years left. No. Yeah.
I don't see a huge urgency to just from that negotiation standpoint. And then also like, I want to give Scoot Henderson like an awesome pick and roll partner year one. Because Nurk's really good at setting screens and Scoot's like a pretty unselfish player and likes to feed other players. Like you could just see that at Summer League. Like, holy cow,
amazing.
we have a real, sorry, Dave, but we have a real point guard that's like distributing the ball. Like that's really exciting to me. So I don't see why we can't have Nurk in the rotation. And in a rebuild context, we're probably not pushing him as hard as we are when we're trying to win. I would just love to see Cronin please like one balanced like roster where we actually have some center depth so that we can sit Nurk.
Do you think he puts up big numbers if he's on the Blazers with Scoot and all of these young dudes? Do you think that because of just how young and like he's going to ball dominant in the minutes that he plays?
Small sample size theater, but like I still remember when it was him and Ant after Dame got shut down the first tank year. And I mean, Nurk looked like a completely different player because I think it was that away Memphis game, and it was like Ant and Nurk running pick and roll all game. And like, when Nurk gets fed, there's a little extra, there's a little extra pop in his step. So, can I pivot really quick? Have you guys been following this Eddie Tavares rumor at all? I don't know he's the like Real Madrid guy. And obviously there's a buyout issue potentially with him, but like defensive big man, top like defensive player. He's like 31 in Europe. So I'm not sure if that really helps the rebuild timeline, but I just don't mind having a defensive like front court to protect our guards if that's going to be how we rebuild. So I was just curious if you guys have been following that at all.
Yeah. I do think everything's hinging on the Lillard trade in terms of rounding out the rest of the roster. And initially, I thought like, yeah, we got to get rid of Nurk. Like the contract's bad. If you're taking Dame, you got to take his buddy as well. But I never liked the idea of selling low. And the books are relatively clean, especially if you move Damian Lillard. And it's not like Portland's like a free agent destination, so you don't have to worry too much about urgency in terms of attracting free agents or creating cap room in that situation.
Mm.
But to your point, I had this in my notes. I love the idea of Nurk being there for Scoot just as a absolute dump truck. You know, just he's going to set the screens. He's going to run to the rim. He's going to pave the way. He's going to make a snow plow, like beep, beep, get out the way. And he could be like his enforcer. Like you need a big guy, a vet who's been around the block a bit. And to your point, Sage, I think he does need to be used more. And I think he would in these lineups with Henderson. And I love the idea of giving him the ball and letting him make decisions. Scoot is an absolute gem off ball. We know Shaden's a monster off ball. Like just those cuts that could open up the floor with Jeremy, you know, spreading it out on the wing. I think and Ant as well. Like there are a lot of different options for this coaching staff to get creative. Like I think Portland has the time right now to be patient and build Nurk's value back up.
Mm-hmm.
Trim a year or two off his contract in the process, and then you can move him when it makes a little bit more sense. So they basically just be patient. They can get something for him down the line. You don't have to get something for him right now.
He's probably our second best decision maker, right? Scoot's number one, and he's two. I
Yeah.
don't trust Jeremy Grant to set anybody else up, and Ant's vision's pretty bad. So Yusuf right now is our second best playmaker. So in
Agreed.
the time that he's in, utilize the fact that he has vision. Of course, he tries to, make passes that aren't really there, but at least he sees that something could happen when he has the ball in his hands instead of like Ant who dribble, 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 and then tries to utilize a pick and shoot. I like that. At least we'll have another active passer. So
The next question I have for the both of you, assuming Damian is gone, who's the man? Like whose team is it? Who's stepping up in the locker room to call out sloppy play or to take responsibility to hold the rest of the guys accountable? Who's going to galvanize the squad? Like it can't be the head coach. Like it has to come from a player. So Dame's gone. Who's the man in your opinion?
Scoot and Jeremy Grant probably. I mean, Scoot's just so involved in the games that I think that his style of leadership, like he's gonna be a leader of men day one, and then Jeremy Grant's getting paid the most on the team, and I think he's the one vet that, I mean, Nurk may or may not be there. He's the one vet that's actually been successful in the league. These young guys are at least going to listen to, hey, I was a gadget guy, and now I'm somebody that has 25% usage and can lead a team to some victories. Like I think Jeremy Grant's at least going to be good for Chris Murray and all these wings. So, but I think Scoot, just because of who he is number one.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sage. I think it's Scoot's team for sure. This team's been full of guys made in Dame's image for so long. Even when CJ was here, we haven't really had. I mean, Dame was like that quiet leader, lead by example. We haven't had like a raw. I was trying to think, like, when was the last time we had like a raw leader that was like? I mean, you saw him in that interview on ESPN during the summer league game. That dude is vocal. He's like yelling. He's like supporting his guys. Was it
Scottie
Evan
Pippen?
Turner? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Carmelo even was like such a smooth operator. And if Simons is that person, he's much more quiet. Shaden Sharp is like super chill. Scoot just seems like the type of guy that a bunch of players would rally around. And I don't blame the Blazers front office for falling in love with this dude at draft workouts, because it's very apparent, like immediately, that he's got that it quality.
I think Yusuf will be a leader, like individually. Like if he's talking to Chris Murray, I think he'd be a really good leader. I just don't know if he's going to be that dude that in the locker room we have to focus up. I don't think that's Yusuf, but I think he does that big brother, puts his big ass arm around a player and talks to him. I've seen that a lot on like when they're walking back from the timeouts, but I just don't know if he's that dude for the entire squad, but I think he can be a leader to an individual. What about you, Dustin? What do you think?
There's just so many parallels between this upcoming season and Brandon's rookie year. It's a little scary in a good way. Like it was clear early on, like it was Brandon Roy's team. I think it will be Scoot soon enough. I don't know, like day one, if the rest of the vets are gonna be cool with a 19-year-old coming in and just being the guy. I think it'll eventually happen and will eventually be him. Because like you have so many parallels. I think you have a couple of stat padding forwards who got paid a buttload of money, Zach Randolph and Jeremy Grant, but neither I don't think is really vocal or has the charisma to be a natural born leader. Both kind of like do their own thing and kind of fall in line with the other, I think, alphas of the squad. You've got some vets there. That team had Persbilla and Juan Dixon. We still have Nurkic, Matisse Thybulle, kind of have like a shy, second year lottery pick, Martell Webster, Shaden Sharp. Like I think Shaden is maybe the most talented of the bunch, but I don't know if the intangibles of him being a leader is really in his repertoire or will ever be. But as long as he just cooks on the court, you don't need him to be that. That's why drafting Scoot was so mindful and I think impactful for this roster to fill that void. Like every team needs a vocal leader. And like Chris Murray kind of gives me like LaMarcus vibes. Like he just seems kind of chill and shy. Like I don't know if I get leadership vibes from him either, even though he's going to be more of a polished rookie coming in. So yeah, I think it'll eventually be Scoot. I think it's going to be leadership by committee early on, but I think there was a stretch in Roy's rookie year where the team won like 5 in a row in December. He was winning rookie of the month honors, and it was like, okay, yeah, he not only does he have the personality for it, but he's backing it up on the court. Once we see those performances from Henderson, then I think everyone's like, okay, like this is the deal.
And it's not like we named everybody that's quote unquote good. It's not like Jabari is gonna take the reins and be that leader. So I think it's got to be one of. I think Scoot has to be it.
What do the Trailblazers do with Anthony Simons? And if he is kept, what is his role? Like, and I asked this question because it reminds me of The Office, the dinner party episode when Michael and Jan are getting into a fight, and Michael just keeps talking about like the effect of 3 vasectomies and the snip, snap, snip, snap. And I feel really bad for Anthony Simons because he's like, oh, you're now the future star of the team last year. Oh, we're trying to trade you heavily with this number 3 pick. Oh, nobody wanted you. Dame requested out. So now you're back in the fold. So like I really feel for the guy. He's under contract. What in the hell are the Blazers going to do with him? And it doesn't really
trade him for Jarris Walker. Oh, that won't happen. I think we treat him like Zach LaVine. I think those two are incredibly similar. You'd never have him run offense for you. He just pull up, shoots, and hits 3. I don't think there's a market for him right now. Like every team that could use an ant got one in the draft. Like Orlando was a big a question mark. They got Jet, and he's a lot cheaper and can do a lot of the things Ant can do with his pull up shooting. And like I just don't think there's a market. Maybe a team needs a gunner at the deadline, but I think he's gonna be a combo guard that hopefully doesn't be that big of a playmaker for us. But
yeah. I mean, given that this year's draft isn't like, I hope that Portland gets like a top 5 pick this year, but if I'm Cronin, I'm focusing all my energy on making Ant, Thybulle, and Grant like these like I want Grant to turn into Lauri Markkanen. I want Ant to make the All-Star team this year. I want Thybulle to be like the 2-way player that he's never been before. And that means like I want Scoot to be setting Ant up. I want him to be hitting him with like open passes everywhere and looking for him. I think that no matter what, Scoot and Sharp are gonna like they're gonna get tons of minutes. I would love to start Sharp already, and I want to see him cook, but I think there's a concern if you are giving Sharp like tons of shots and like lots of extra possessions. So that means I'm like focusing a lot of my energy on making making Anthony, like testing him, making him get to the line more, like trying to build out some of the parts of his game that he couldn't really develop when Dame was here. And if that means like a slight slow play on Scoot and on Sharp, I'm fine with that for 1 year, because I want Ant's value to go up, and maybe that means him sticking around, but ultimately that means that he's not going to be seen by other GMs as this like one-dimensional combo guard, which I think is kind of what we learned, right? Like Sage, like Cronin was shopping that dude for a while,
Oh yeah,
and like all off season we are trying to drum up like this perfect Ant trade, and it never really came
and
to
to
pass.
Orlando
Exactly.
for
So
one of their picks. Yeah.
I think you focus and make those guys under contract with the big deals, make them kind of these shiny jewels, because nobody thought Lauri Markkanen was like all that, and all of a sudden he's like this shiny object in Utah now. So try to do that if you're Cronin.
So I actually have a question. So who do you think is the, like, we talked about the leader, but who do you think is going to be the usage leader? Who's going to take the most shots? Who's second? Who's third? Who's fourth? Unless
what month of the season are you talking about? Like,
true.
I think early on, it's probably going to be Simons and it's probably going to be Grant. They're probably going to slowly start to fall in the standings, and I think that's when you're going to finally see them unleash Shaden, and you might see guys. I think they'll be bad enough you don't have to inevitably like tank. I think they'll just tank just because of the roster is what it is. But I think it will be. I don't think it'll be Scoot. I don't think he's going to be taking the most shots. I think his role early on will be setting up and distributing and picking his spots when to go. And like, I think Ant is perfect for this team, and if he's utilized correctly. And I will gain a lot of respect for Joe Cronin in that front office if they will make the tough decision, which I think they never did with CJ, which was trade CJ earlier than he was. But with Ant, it's you do one thing really fucking well, and it's score the shit out of the basketball. You don't need to be starting. Come off the bench. You still get your 30 minutes. Take your 15, 16 shots. Win 6 man of the year. That is the way. Like, I don't want to see another small backcourt. Like, I've seen enough of it. I cannot watch Scoot and Ant. Like, if Ant were a plus defender, okay. If Ant were a rebounder, okay. But he doesn't rebound. He doesn't really pass. Like, if Ant
doesn't go to the rim either.
Yeah, if he's not scoring the basketball, he's not.
You think it is what it is with Ant at this point, basically?
Not necessarily, but he needs to show it to me. But I also think he will be able to do that. Like, if he is the lead dog off the bench, like, it's been like Manu Ginobili carved that. Jamal Crawford, like, those guys have Lou Williams, like, they're going to go down in basketball lore because people remember them for doing what they do best. But
how old is Ant? Like 22, 23?
24, I think. Yeah, he's 24.
I don't know if I don't think he's mature enough to think this way, though. I mean, he
might not be, Sage, but the Blazers sacrificed everything to be in the situation, right? Nearly everyone else would have done whatever they could have done to build around Dame, which was shop that third pick, overpay, say, Shaden, sorry, we're going to trade you and Josh Hart for OG last year. Like, they sacrificed everything to get this kid from Canada and this generational point guard from Marietta, Georgia. This is your future. You risked it all to have these two guys. So why are you not, from the get-go, getting them as much time together as possible? You actually have positional size at the 1 and the 2, and we're going to go down this same path again of Dame CJ, Ant and Dame, Scoot and Ant. Like, the small backcourt, it just doesn't work. So yeah. Like
I just worry though that it would be. Yeah,
you got to think Chauncey Billups is probably loyal to Anthony Simons, so he's probably going to force feed him into that.
Or I worry it would be Ant and Sharp and Scoot would be coming off the bench.
God, I don't worry. So I think the most likely scenario is Ant, Scoot in the backcourt with Shaden at the 3. And I don't love Shaden at the 3 either. Like, Portland has a chance to get this right. And it's like they've gone this far. Like continue to go down that road. And like if Ant doesn't like it, like he's still getting paid. They can say, hey, we're working on a trade for you, but you can also be blunt with him and say, we tried to move you, but nobody wants you. You got to fix these parts of your game. Like if you want out of here, like show teams that you can defend a little bit. Like you're athletic as hell. You won the dunk contest. Why are you attempting one free throw game? Like there's so much room for Ant to grow. And I truly believe that because he performed so well when Dame was off the floor. And I think Scoot offers a different, like, I think Ant and Shaden and Scoot could be a finishing five against certain lineups.
Yeah, like Utah or something.
Yeah, I definitely do. And I think Scoot's going to get him a lot of great looks.
Yeah, he's going to, just because of the rim pressure, it's going to get every shooter a little bit more open.
I need Ant to take that next step and say, okay, they're believing in me. How do I become a better player rather than just a better scorer? Like, he shouldn't be such a negative on defense. Like, with his athleticism, he should be grabbing 4.5 boards a game.
With Scoot, I imagine him crashing the board like Derrick Rose or Rajon Rondo. Couldn't you see the same thing for Ant? Grab and go rebounds.
Grab and go. Yeah.
Transition threes.
Make the simple pass for Ant. And that's what Chauncey was saying after, I think it was the Atlanta game. I don't know why I remember this, probably because I had a newborn and I was listening to the radio and it was post game. And he was talking about how he's working with Anthony Simons and he just told him, don't overthink it, make the simple pass. And that's one where I was like, okay, he's never a point guard. He is strictly a two combo at best. But grab, go, make the simple pass, and get on the break. You've got some absolute dogs that you can unleash. Like Shaden on the break is must-see TV. Like get him the ball. You know,
Chris Murray trailing.
Chris Murray trailing for the three. You've got Jeremy Grant trailing for the three. You know, Scoot's a good decision maker. Like Nas, like we're forgetting about, like Nas can finish with the best of them too. So like everything should be about speed and getting it going. Yeah. And I think it can work. I just don't want it to be the Simon show, I guess. Like that's.
So, do you think we're going to be a fast-paced team for the first time since Dame was drafted? We're gonna burn up in transition.
And yeah, it's all going to be predicated on how many stops they get. Because like if you're taking the ball out of your basket, you can only go so fast. So they do have to figure out a way to get some defensive stops against some opponents. It's going to be a long evening, and I think we're all aware of that coming in. But I do want to get to these next two questions. We are running a bit long as we normally do on Holy Backboard, and I want to be cognizant of Sam's time. And the last two questions are related to Joe Cronin. The first one, very subjective. Is Joe Cronin a good GM so far with his track record, given what he inherited, where the Blazers are standing right now? You asked this to 10 different Blazer fans. They're going to probably give you 10 different answers. So I thought it would be good to tee it up to both of you and get your thoughts. Do you think he's a good GM?
This is a really hard question to answer. I think he's been used mostly as one of those consultants that comes in and assists with like a merger and an acquisition. Mm-hmm. If you go through most of the trades he's made, it's really hard to disagree with like most of them. Like individually, a lot of them make sense. The two that I was questionable on at the time look a lot better now. The Norm Rocco trade hurt really bad, but those were two guys that are now in their 30s and overpaid and undervalued. I mean, Norm Powell was like available and nobody wanted him this offseason.
Rocco doesn't even play anymore.
Right, right. And the GP2 signing, like that was probably number one in my book, and he was able to get out of that like a few months later. So you could argue that the Nurkic contract individually hurt the team the most, just from an opportunity cost perspective. Maybe there's another big, even a scrap heap big could have come in and maybe like changed the identity of the team a little bit.
I think Neil signed him to that.
No, I think it was Joe. I don't know if there's any validity to this, but the Trailblazer message board rumor is Joe and Clutch had a backdoor deal that says, you let us shut down your guy, we're going to take care of him in the offseason, which led to the first tank. So I think there has to be some validity to that because Nurk got a slight raise and he was definitely healthy and playing some of the best basketball he had.
Yeah. And honestly, my biggest issue with Nurkic is less about Nurkic. It's more that we just didn't have quality help behind him to like actually to work with him when he gets injured and isn't available. So I'm actually not opposed to Cronin. I'm excited for him to be in negotiations where he doesn't have all of the leverage against him. for once, where he's actually on the front foot, because he's been backing out of all of the decisions that Olshey made the last couple of years.
That's a really, really astute observation that you made about Cronin and the position that he was put in. He was tasked with getting under the luxury tax. That's why at the time that trade with the Clippers looked so awful, because every other GM knew that he had to get under the tax, and those were the two contracts that he was really dangling out of there. Another positive for me was, unlike Olshey, who would maybe double down on a bad move, Cronin realized, oh, GP2 is not working out. Let's get 5 second-round picks. Let's remove that contract off of our book. So that gives me some hope that he's not just stuck in his ways. Like, he's like, oh, I had good self-awareness. I made a mistake. Let's see how we can correct this. I loved the Josh Hart trade, because as good of a rebounder as he was, Josh Hart just decided to stop shooting threes. And it would have been tough to get him to re-sign in Portland because of his East Coast ties. And he's also going to get this massive extension with the Knicks. And I don't know if Josh Hart is worth that, even in increasing CBA, and you get Chris Murray out of it. And so regardless of me wanting Jalen Duren instead of Jeremy Grant, getting a first round pick for Jeremy Grant is good business. I thought they got off of the CJ contract. Yeah, I think you nailed it, Sam. Like, every deal individually has been good. The only concerns I have, and this is really going on secondhand knowledge of all of the scuttlebutt and rumors that get reported, is like, was he really considering trading for OG? Was he really considering trading for Paul George or, Pascal Siakam? Like, to me, it was a no-brainer. You do not trade the 7th pick, and you do not trade the 3rd pick. Like, you need to replenish your young assets. So I would really I don't think there's a perfect answer, because we just don't know. Like, I would love to know, like, was he really close to making those trades? Was it just, people trying to drum up website clicks and retweets? Because if it was where he wasn't really even close, then that's awesome. But if he was close and we just got bailed out because Masai Ujiri is
I mean,
a bad GM.
Wasn't it Masai that said no to one of the
Yes.
final like that? Like, Sharp
Yes.
is.
I mean, that's
like,
what's
we all
reported.
hate Masai because he's hard to deal with, but he kind of saved.
I'm the biggest Masai Ujiri.
He kind of saved this version of the team. Like, the Sharp would not be a Blazer if
watching the Blazers
Masai.
without Shaden Sharp last year would have been impossible.
Oh my gosh,
for me.
Yeah.
Sage, what do you think?
I think that he's competent. I also think that he's extremely lucky, because Brandon Miller probably should be a Blazer right now.
Exactly.
So he got extraordinarily lucky. First of all, getting the 3rd pick, hugely lucky. And then the Hornets getting the 2nd pick and taking Brandon Miller, who he was 7 for me.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of sucks.
To be fair, if they would have taken Amen Thompson, like, I would have been
fucking psyched, but I don't think that would have been the. I think we're lucky that we got Scoot. So yes. I think that he's competent, but he's got a rabbit's foot somewhere.
Exactly. But Sage, to that point, like, I was thinking about this on my walk. Every GM, like, GM's one of the weird positions in all of professional sports where, like, the only thing you have control over is, like, player development, like the draft. You have no control over what you move up and down in the lottery. Like, you have no control over what GMs ahead of you are selecting. With trades, you have to find another GM to work with. Like, is Chad Buchanan looked upon as lovingly in Portland if he's not dealing with Billy King, who's like, yeah, we'll take Gerald Wallace for the 6th pick? Like,
that was lucky.
It takes 2 to tango. Like, you can find gems. Like, I think Heat culture is real. The Spurs culture is real. Like, they find all these undrafted guys, they turn water into wine, and you get credit for that. But a lot of it is kind of trying to, like, one up somebody else. And, same thing with free agency. Like, does another GM, do they go all in and do they dry up their cap space? And now you're the only, team with cap space that can get this X free agent. So, like, there's just so many.
There's a lot of context to everything.
A lot of context.
And I think Hinkie's kind of introduced a new version of the modern GM, which is that you don't want to be like, how many times did we hear this year, like, oh, this GM doesn't want to trade for this guy because they're too early in their process. Like, back in the day, if I recall correctly, it was a little bit more like, yeah, we got a great player, like, let's move. Like Like a lot of the older
We got
transactions from
Otis
the 90s.
Thorpe for Clyde. Let's go.
Yeah, like in the 90s, it was like there was like 10 players in a trade. And now it's like it's more about expiring contracts, pick collection, swaps. It's a much more like asset manager type of role.
You
I
talk
feel like
about the
yeah, go ahead.
90s and you talk about the 2000 Blazers being one of your favorite teams. Portland traded six pieces of nothing. No disrespect to those wonderful human beings, but six players with very little value. Scottie fucking Pippen.
Scottie Pippen, unbelievable. Trader Bob was really he was one of the best. Like he sold a lot of Oregonian papers back in the day because
Yeah, I mean, they were just like, yeah, the mindset has completely changed. First round picks are valued so much more. Phoenix isn't selling picks that would turn into Luol Deng, Rajon Rondo, or Rudy Fernandez. Like people hold on to them like gold now. And the last question.
And sorry, really quick, Dustin. Like I think the new CBA has introduced a new era too of owners not wanting to give up on what they have. Like Chicago, Toronto, both should probably be sellers this summer, and they're not. Because they think they're like a they think they're
Alonzo
like the
Ball
Miami
injury
Heat.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, they think they're the Miami Heat maybe next year. So I think it's really tough to get trades done now, and it's a little bit more about like asset management, which is just not exciting.
All right, last question to round this up, and that is a good point. Being a good GM, you're only as good as your owner is, really. Um, Joe Cronin, do you trust him to lead a multi-year rebuild from scratch? Love him, hurt or hate him, Kevin Pritchard started off with a bang and kind of went out with a little bit of a whimper. Yes, you can put that on Brandon Roy's knees, maybe Greg Oden's knees as well, but he was one who held on to his expiring contracts and his assets for dear life. We've seen that GMs kind of maybe get pushed ahead in their process a little bit too early. We talked about Phoenix in 2014. Neil Olshey did it with the Blazers in 2016, but the Blazers kind of tore it down. They've got great building blocks. Joe Cronin's the GM. What's the temperature level? Are you guys feeling good with him leading? Because he's now leading this rebuild from basically he started like he drafted Shade and he drafted Scoot. Like this is now basically aside from a few guys like roster has his fingerprints all over it.
I think that I trust him a lot drafting because he has good people in his ear telling him about, Shade and Sharp. He didn't play a fucking game. So of course, like you had to look at EYBL footage to say this guy's special. So I trust him with draft picks, and hopefully this trade gets us draft picks. So I trust him in that aspect. I don't really know. I feel like he bets against himself on free agency, so I don't particularly believe in him in that aspect. But if we're just talking draft capital, I do. Trades, they are good, but I think this Dame one is going to answer a lot of questions. So I believe in his the team that he has around him for draft decisions. And fuck, man, I didn't trust Neil Olshey at all. So to have some part of your general manager that you trust, it's a very welcome change. So I at least trust him in draft. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, personnel wise, I think he's done a good job. I mean, the Schmitz move was solid. I think he's made good draft picks. The remix is going to be a really fun, awesome like pipeline component. We'll get to see Baji, and John Butler, and maybe another guy
Ryan
develop. Yep, that's right, Repair. But I really would love to see Jody get up on the podium and like give Cronin a ringing endorsement because I feel like Cronin has just been a little bit of a puppet for ownership the last couple of years, just like getting them out of Olshey's issues and stuff. So yeah, I'd like Joe to kind of step up and be a little bit more of the face of the franchise and communicate a vision after Dame. Like what's the let it bake for Joe, and create kind of a narrative around the team. I mentioned it before, but like the good GMs create a narrative for their fan base to follow. And it gives the fans a context with which to enjoy the team. I mean, like OKC fans know exactly how to watch OKC basketball at this point. They know how to evaluate the players. I don't really know. Joe's been kind of getting out of sticky situations from one to the other since he joined. I got to give him credit for the Grant signing, because that was like a 3-part trade, like getting out of CJ and getting into Grant. It allowed us as a small market not to get rid of the asset completely. And that was a 2.5 2 year like situation with CJ. So, and that was a terrible contract. So yeah, I think I would give him a couple more years. I do think, though, to Sage's point, that like the Dame trade, if he gets fleeced by Riley, I don't know if he can enter into a good faith negotiation again with another GM. Like, I think it's that simple, which is really tricky to say about one GM and one trade. But yeah, overall, I think he's been okay. I'd give him a couple more years.
Yeah, for me, I kind of want to grade him after the Dame trade because I'm already setting myself up because like it feels like it's Miami or bust, like just how the landscape of the rest of the league is shaping, and that package is never going to be good enough. You're never going to get the Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert return. I want to see how he does after that. How does he manage Matisse Thybulle? Like you said, how does he manage Anthony? How does he manage Jeremy Grant? Can he turn those values upside down? Can he start to generate assets? Can you start to see the progression? Like, right, we talk about those Roy Blazers.
Yeah.
They win like 32 wins, then 41, then 54. 3 years, they were home court advantage, right? They had a direct path, and you could see that. I also just want to see him operate after Dame because, like, you could tell they wanted to rebuild. Like, the actions always spoke louder than words to me. Like, the reason they didn't sign another center behind Yusuf Nurkic is because they knew they wanted to suck.
Yeah.
The reason they traded Josh Hart for a first round pick is because they knew they wanted to build that asset back up, but they also had this Damian Lillard sized piece of marketing that they still had to package to the fans. And so, like, when fans were like feeling like they were lied to, I was like, you can't always believe what the team's trying to sell you. They're trying to sell tickets first and foremost, but I think it will be more of a genuine and honest message once this has all been settled, because anyone, I think, who really looked at it clearly saw the two sides, Dame and the Blazers, kind of coming to a head. Just like, okay, this really needs to be different directions here. And so now that hopefully once the dust settles, we can come back and we can say, okay, this is the plan. Scoot's the guy. We also love Shaden, and here's how we're going to roll. And we got the remix. We're really excited. And I want to see how he operates that. Like, can he find that third star? Can he build out the roster? Like, to me, the hard part is really done. You have your alpha point guard, the floor general amongst floor generals. You have a superstar in the making wing in Shaden Sharp, who complements Scoot so well. You've got basically Drexler Porter 2.0 in a modern NBA game. Now all you have to do is you got to find a third star, and you got to build out the roster that complements one another. You got to find these pieces. Can he do those little details, right? Like, I think he's right, Sage. I think he lucked into the hard part. Really, like, maybe my expectations are high, but because I feel so highly about Scoot and Shaden, like, don't fuck this up. Like, I feel pretty good about him, but also there's not much room for error in my eyes, just because of how well they're set up, especially if you're able to get off Dame's contract. You get a ton of picks, so you have some flexibility to identify some players who might be those perfect puzzle pieces. And you should be able to finally have that capital to go out and acquire it. But I'm very confident in their player development, in their player scouting department. They brought in just a ton of people. I think they're going in the right direction. So maybe it's just being optimistic. Maybe it's just love watching a fun team grow. But
I just thought it was funny. There's a lot of people, especially credentialed media, that have to show up at the locker room every day that were like, you don't know how hard this next year is going to be. And I was like, are you kidding? This is going to be the fun part. Like, the expectations are going to be very reasonable. And we're just going in it to watch some really fun players develop. Like, that's the best part. That's the best part. The vibes in OKC and some of these other developing teams that have sucked the last couple of years. I mean, the Twitterati are all over those teams. So I think it's going to be nice to have the air pressure like dialed back a little bit and just watch some fun basketball. So
exactly. All right. Thank you for joining us, Sam. Really appreciate your time on this Thursday evening. Let our listeners know if where they can find your material, and then Sage, bring this one on home.
Yeah, so I'm Rip Village on Twitter. I started a kind of like Trailblazer snack, which is like a 10-minute kind of take, and I try to publish them as much as possible. Try to be a little silent during this heat negotiation. But yeah, those are posting every couple of days, and that's at Rip Village on Twitter. And the podcast is called Lickety Brindle Up the Podcast. Shouts to Shants.
All right, we are available on iTunes, Stitcher, Himalaya Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. We also are on Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, TikTok, all of the apps. So thank you so much for listening, and we're out of here. Bruce.